participation and roll up today. We have a few raffle. You'll find that there's a very, very good TARC, and they're here today. And don't forget these raffle tickets, because we can't draw the raffle until they're all signed. We've got one more there right there at the picture.
see Harry, give him my regard.
He's in Europe.
Well,
7 months, yeah, since 6 months.
I reported to the office yesterday, and I wanted to go to Philip out and put it in the arena. I didn't have it on the minute. So I went up to order it today.
Never heard of it, yeah.
And I went to the ABC to see Robert Smith.
Very much for your interest. I believe that we're about to go on camera. I like being a film star. Are you people ready or not?
Very good.
Okay, thanks very much. Well, the Max Loveless collection is designed to be a collection of valve-era communications equipment in permanent memorial, particularly of Max Loveless, the man who was an amateur in Tasmania under the call sign VK7RS for many years, and who during the Second World War, at the time when Australia was very seriously threatened with invasion, was with the troops on Timor who held off the Japanese invaders who had just sacked Singapore. Max was part of the Sparrow Force who were left on Timor to keep the Singapore Tiger and other elements of the Japanese forces occupied rather than knocking on Darwin's front door. Those men of the Second Independent Company and elements of the 2nd 40th Battalion who were left on Timor, who surrendered in part and ended up in Changi. The remainder who took to the hills and lived as probably some of the first Australian guerrillas in modern history. There were approximately 450 of them who in that early part of, now let me get the story right, I'm fairly sure it was early 1941, from about April through for 50 to 60 days, lived in the hills and kept the Japanese occupied. They didn't have boots, they had plenty of ammunition, no tucker, and very little other support equipment. They had no reliable radio communication back to Australia, and in fact the Australian authorities had given them up as being either dead or captured. Max Loveless and 2 other people from the signals contingent, but principally Max Loveless, despite the fact that he was near death with malaria, constructed Winnie the War Winner, a simple CW transmitter built on a split upturned kerosene tin as a chassis and constructed out of the remains of an a wireless set number 109, an early World War II, late 1930s really, Australian field set, with a couple of 807s in parallel, and the remains of a Dutch Philips broadcast receiver as the receiving equipment. When they first tried to get through to Darwin, the Darwin authorities didn't believe that it was a genuine message, and on the second try, after they'd got no response, Max changed the full wave rectification into half wave to increase the voltage on the plates of the 807s, and managed to get a response from the Darwin authorities. The Darwin authorities believed that it was a bogus message, and I know they asked such questions as, and you'll find in some of you that have read the information kits that I put round from time to time, will find that there's certain discrepancies in the story. I don't really think they are discrepancies, I think they are simply additions to the story. But there were a number of people that were asked to come to the key and say, you are Joe Bloggs, where do you live, what's your wife's name, I don't know whether it was what size bra she took or what, but other personal information. And that was corroborated. And I certainly know that Max's wife had only recently, at that stage, given birth to Max's eldest daughter. And Max knew about that, and he knew a name, and he was able to pass that over, and they finally accepted that the communications were genuine. The Morse key was a piece of bamboo with appropriate contacts, and it certainly stands as a mark in the annals of amateur radiomanship, or personship, for those of us that don't like sexist language. It stands as a mark in that regard that there was an amateur, Max Loveless, who at a time of great need for his compatriots and his country was able to use the skills that he had developed as a radio amateur in building a radio without the benefit of measuring equipment, because I know for a fact that he had earlier dropped the multimeter that he carried and that someone had trodden on it. He's personally told me that story. And they didn't even have proper solder or soldering irons. They melted down solder through bamboo tubes out of existing captured gear for solder. They sent out parties, and there's a chap that lives in Launceston that was part of one of the parties to capture things like generators off the Japanese, to capture batteries, and battery charging was their biggest problem. Today, Winnie the War winner resides in the Australian War Memorial in Canberra. At the present time, telecom employees who are employed at the Black Mountain Tower in Canberra are doing a technical appreciation of Winnie. They are photographing her from every angle possible. I hope they're not embarrassing her in any way. They're tracing out the circuit, and there will be a technical appreciation of Winnie sent back to this state, and we hope that under the auspices of the Wireless Institute, it'll be possible for us to have a replica of Winnie built. We've got the remains of a 109 set, one that we don't mind wrecking because it's already been commenced to be wrecked. We know Tom Ward's got a good one, and he won't get away without making sure that goes to a good home. So we don't feel bad about wrecking that 109 set. We know where there are some genuine World War II kerosene tins, because they were put into a telecom establishment during World War II as parts drawers. And I understand that to replace one of those parts drawers would cost about $150 today on man hours, but we're confident that the telecom will come to the party there. And we will be seeking the support of amateurs and business houses in having a proper replica built. And I'm sure that's going to be worthwhile. But the whole purpose of the Max Loveless collection is, under the aegis of the Australian Telecom Employees Association, is to preserve the craft of being a technician, of being a technical person, of being a person that likes to fiddle with radio, well into the next century. We want people in 100 years' time, or on the 150th anniversary of the Wireless Institute, to be able to say, goodness gracious me, is that the way they used to work wireless? Just like today, you walk into a blacksmith shop and say, goodness gracious me, is that the way they used to wrought iron? That's the whole philosophy of it. The ACTU has got what I term a couth and culture policy that says that workers should be involved in music, couth, culture and the arts. That could mean that I should be up on the stage at the Theatre Royal in a tutu trying to dance. That would not be a particularly worthwhile venture. I'd suggest to you that the Max Loveless collection is. If I could move on then without too much ado, there is what really is a random collection here of apparatus, so I will move around it in my customary random way. First of all, we've got a very early, not really miniature, but gang tuning condenser, gang by bands. I'd date that probably as somewhere around 1930, but perhaps just before, perhaps just after. Some very old magazines there. And by the way, this is only a minuscule selection of what we've managed to collect so far. But please don't let that stop you bringing the junk you've got underneath your house and in your ceilings to us. And for any of you that are public servants or have worked for Her Majesty's Post Office or anything else, and were reprobates at an earlier age, all is forgiven. If you bring back what you knocked off 20 or 30 years ago, there'll be no questions asked. This is a wireless set number 17, used during the Blitz in the UK as a communication medium between searchlight batteries. They hadn't heard of handhelds in those days, and if you think about it, the ordinary Don 5 and so forth telephones wouldn't have been much use because bombs have a terrible effect on telephone lines. But that unit was brought out, and I'm assured that that was actually used in the northern London area during the Blitz. There's a Jenny motor, which is simply the way you used to be able to convert 12 or 24 or 28 volts DC into high tension supplies pre-transistors. You can do it with a transistor supply now, but you don't need them anyway because you don't need the high voltages, I'm told. Very inefficient, about 20% efficient at the best, I believe. There's an early, or an old radio chassis, made, I would suggest, as cheaply as possible, but certainly an efficient 80-metre rig, typifying what I believe ham radio was about in the post-war period. Here we have, and I'm sorry I can't go through the actions, the Audie Murphy walkie-talkie, the one that you see in all the black and white movies about World War II and how John Wayne won it for us. I know there's a few more of those and we have to get a net going on those. Could I ask if by any chance anyone's got the remains of batteries that fit any of these things, even though I know the batteries will be no good, would be very interested in getting hold of the battery so we can get the connection. Some old valves here. Well, some of these, it means that I'm showing my age, don't seem old to me. 833, used I think in the drivers at Station 7ZL. Other transmitting valves. There is a Morse key out of a Japanese aircraft. A beautiful key. The people that would tell you that in the last war the Japanese radio equipment was not up to scratch are quite wrong. In fact, VK7RS brother from Launceston, Bill Brackett, told me shortly before his death that when he was on the Kokoda Trail during the Second World War, a Japanese brigade headquarters was captured, and he was one of the party that went in to examine the radio equipment that was there, and they were threatened with the firing squad if they made any comment at all on the gear, because the gear was that good, whereas the 11 sets that they'd carried over the trail had to be opened up whenever there was sunshine to stop them going mouldy and so forth. The Jap stuff was fully tropicalised and made out of aircraft type alloy rather than the wrought on the number 11 set was. There is the famous R1155, the transmitter that was used in so much of the early RAF aircraft. Those sets were actually in use in the Lancasters for a start. But they were carried in the very early stage of the war, typified really by their beautiful dial. In fact, I don't know any other vernier dial even today that's got as beautiful an action as that. And I've actually got a brand new kit, which is the Mark II dial, that's even better. We've recently got the good news that we've been given a T1154, which is the companion transmitter, and we'll be looking for steam age amateurs to get that going. Here's a Morse code practice oscillator, again built by Davis Baldwin, pre-World War II. Here's something very interesting, a couple of the old Oxhunt sets. One made by Peter, the late Peter VK. Beautifully built stuff, if you look at it, really typifies the craft of the art, in my view. Really, really nice gear. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to mention every piece, otherwise you'll be here and the drinks will be served, and I don't want you throwing grog at me, so I'll just try and keep moving. Here's the Gibson Girl transmitter, used in lifeboats. Up to quite recently, actually, they've got a hand crank on them, and I believe that the hand crank supplied the power. I think depending on how frightened you were, was how fast you cranked and how far you got. But they were an automatic thing. You didn't need to know much about Mr. Morse and his wonderful alphabet, because inside the thing was, by a mechanical system, an arrangement so that an automatic signal would be sent out. Over here we have what I believe is at least one of our pièces de résistance, the marvellous HF transmitter built by the late Max Chaplin, VK7CA, and used as late, certainly into the very late 1960s, I believe, into the early 1970s. It features an 808, not an 807, an 808 in the power amplifier. And I'm very pleased to say that someone came up to me the other day and said they had a box of brand new 808s. 807 driver and a big B-class modulator. And it's plate modulated, and I believe that it would go very well. With the transmitter came the original logbooks, and I was brave enough to take all the covers off the logbook, and I found something very interesting amongst that. It refers to the home brew competition. I can recall a time when there was home brew being made in the studios in Hobart, with Auntie, and no one would tell you the recipe. I've now got the home brew recipe, and one Sunday morning we'll put it out over the broadcast, and we'll get some of you people to try it. and we'll just see whether or not homebrew is still alive in amateur radio service. Up here is a little 2-valve set built again by Davis Baldwin. 208 set, a front line set in the early part of World War II, replaced of course by this sort of thing, the Audie Murphy stuff, as technology developed. This is very interesting, or I think it is anyway, you mightn't. It would be, I think, the only remaining piece of Reuter equipment in Australia. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but you know the AAP Reuter, the news agencies. In the days before teletypes, it wasn't all done on a Morse key, or it might have been done the other end, but certainly people could cheat at the other end. This is a Reuter, a Reuter sender-receiver. I've got a book on it that I can't find, that I believe tells you how it works. Someday I'll explain it all to you. Here's part of the TR 1196 equipment out of the very first marks of the Spitfire, transmitter and receiver. We were given that today by Ian Milner from the DOC. Here's a little 108 set used in the Western Desert. Very effective little set at short range if you can keep the batteries up to them. Bear in mind these things all used either 1.4 volt octal or 2 volt tubes, and the main problem was the low tension batteries. I've got some photographs here that unfortunately, and look, we haven't been able to do a really good job of mounting photographs at this particular convention, but I noticed that Len Edwards VK7RS is here. This must be some shots of what surely is the very first single sideman rig, probably in Australia. 1949, and Len's provided those photographs to us, and he's even got some of the notes and the log references. I believe a very historic piece of gear indeed. Another shot of it, I think that's the rig there. Certainly done in the days before ICs and done well prior to it being easy to achieve single sideband operation. There's also, people would like to look at them later, there's some pictures of the VK7 stand at the exhibition in 1954. Now, I don't want you to take them away, they're in my personal care, and I don't want to lose anything, either personally or for Len, because Len might cause me to lose something if I do. So they're there for anyone that wants to look at them, and we'll be getting copies of those made, and hopefully, if you people are generous enough, well before 1988 we will have a history of the Tasmanian WIA written, in which we can record for all times some of these very important bits and pieces that we've got around the place. Now I'll just move over here now. Used certainly in the Dakota aircraft, the C-47 DC-3s, built by Bendix, in my humble opinion, perhaps non-technical opinion, the most sensitive valve receiver I've ever used in my life, and I'm including there the AR-88. They are absolutely superb on the lower frequencies, but unfortunately have got that drift problem that a lot of valve gear's got, but if you leave it on long enough, it doesn't drift. There is the CR100. It's a beautiful set, that particular one. It is absolutely immaculate. It was imported brand new from English disposals in 1961-62 by a chap on the mainland who was in a chair at a particular mainland university and was able to use the full facilities of that university to refurbish that item from brand new. And it even smells new. It's got a brand new handbook with it. That is an extremely sensitive receiver. It's been converted for SSB, and providing you leave it on overnight and don't lift the lid so that there's any air can get through it, it is as stable as my 820, my Kenwood 820. But if you try and use it, within about 3 or 4 hours of warm-up, it's hopeless. In fact, you need a monkey on there to keep on chasing it. There's a very early Morse tape receiver, very similar to the gear, in fact, that Pop Medhurst used in his experiments at Blinking Billy. We actually have that equivalent piece of equipment from the Medhurst transmitter, and that is going to be mounted, as I explained this morning, on a piece of timber from, I think it's Cranley, Pop Medhurst's house anyway, and that will be kept into perpetuity. There is the number 3 Mark II spy set. For those of you that watch SOE of a Sunday night, and I hope there wouldn't be anyone here that would miss that, there's one of those in the leader. Again, that's in full working order. Now that I've got my full ticket, at last, I'm going to be able to get that on the air on CW on 40 metres. I can't wait. I've been waiting 25 years to do it. I'll just shift that chair. there is a valve out of the original 7HA transmitter. And I should say here that I really appreciate the assistance that 7HA in particular have given us in this part of the state, but they really are conscious of history and are prepared to put their money where their mouth is. Over the back here, there goes half the valve collection. Over the back here, and I will have trouble getting this out. Now I find this very interesting. This is a simple one-valve broadcast receiver. It was taken off a Japanese soldier near the top of the Kokoda Trail, a Japanese war correspondent. And for many years it belonged to a member of the staff of the Sydney Morning Herald, who when they heard about our collection asked it to be passed on to us. It isn't restored yet, but it will be. And if there's anyone in here that understands Japanese, I'd appreciate a translation of what it says on the case. In fact, I'm going to talk to Doug Pleister and see whether his wife would be prepared to help us out there, but it may be technical stuff and she mightn't be able to do it, I don't know. Here's a very old broadcast band receiver that will be fully refurbished. It's in pretty chatty order at the moment, but it's all there, and it does typify the way radios were made in days before caterpillars on bits of bakelite. Over the back, I won't in any way try and get all these out. There's a valve out of one of the early transmitters. There's quite an interesting story on those. When the Eindhoven factory was overrun by Germany in Holland during the war, valves became very, very difficult to get. And apparently people here in Tasmania, and Joe Brown could tell you about this, went to very great lengths to keep the transmitters working because valves simply weren't available. Here's a little bracket of valves made up by Joe Brown for us that I find very, very interesting. There's the AWA Type 33 valve. I understand, if not the first, one of the very first valves put into large-scale production in Australia. That's the very first screen grid valve, the very first screen grid valve. That's an 808, same as the valve that's in that transmitter. That, of course, is a crystal detector, and the other valves are also interesting because of age. That's out of a World War I radio. I haven't got time to go through all the valves that are here, but certainly there are some rather rare types. Now, I'm going to get very athletic now and get up on the stage. If you could let me up there, which was an RAAF ground set during World War II and indeed immediately after. There's an AR7 radio, which I wish I owned. It's the most complete one I've ever seen. It is on loan at this stage to the Max Loveless collection. And we have two other AR7s, neither unit. They were, of course, a standard in amateur radio circles. When they were made by AWA, they were known as Sets Reception OS number 1, and Charles Kingsley Love changed them slightly and was making them after the war for the DCA. Down on the floor here is an example of the National HRO receiver, and in fact Charles Kingsley Love, as I understand it, was in a great deal of trouble from Mr National because there was a big patents case over the use of the dial drive, and so if you look you can see the similarity. There's a strange story with the HRO. The HRO was really one of the very first communication receivers to be built. It was built in America, and its original type number was HOR. It was built around 1936. Now, you can say naughty words today and get away with it, but you can't. But you couldn't in those days. Now, I don't really know what's wrong with HRO. I don't know whether HOR. I don't know what the naughty word is there, but it stood for hell of a rush. But when they put it into serious production, they decided that they'd better not say whore, they'd better say HRO. So, that's the reason that I often wondered why it was called HRO, but I've got documentary evidence to suggest that is, in actual fact, the truth. Also on the floor here is what could well be one of the very first post-war television sets in Tasmania. It was built again by the late Max VK7RS. Any of you that are got a few grey hairs in your head like me will recall those articles in Radio and Hobbies. It uses a VCR 97 tube, and I can recall when everyone in the PMG was amazed at our maxi sitting up on Bald Hill, there at Bald Hill Road at Trevellyn, tuning into the 1956 and later television transmissions from Melbourne. That set again will be restored to full working order. We've now got a spare VCR 97 tube for it, and when we get some people technical enough to do some work on it for us, and that probably won't be me, then we'll get that one going. Here is a wireless set number 11. Now it isn't all there, but it is but we have that absolutely complete, right down to and including, I guess there it is, the set of spare valves, the aerial tuning meter, the satchel signals with all the spare bits and pieces in it. We've got handbooks. It's all there. The power supplies are at work. They'll tell you to bring in. That's and also the crystal calibrator Type C, which I picked up just the other day, and which is also part of the number 11 set. That set was obtained from a chap who was a lieutenant in the Royal Australian Signals during the Second World War, and who was issued with the set as part of the development of a high-power wireless net around Australia. And I'm not too sure what the special work was that he was doing, but he had to have it at home anyway. He forgot to take it back. When he tried to take it back, they didn't want to know anything about it anyway, and he was very pleased to make it available to the Max Loveless collection. I have been guaranteed that it actually went up and came back down the Kokoda Trail in the middle era of the fighting there. There's a crystal set and a horn speaker. Why they're together I don't know, it was the only spot we had space. Up on the top there is the wireless set A510, built in the mid-50s in Australia by Amalgamated Wireless. And I can still remember that edition of Radio Nobbies coming out with the review on it. It does seem to me a shame that today in Australia we find it impossible to maintain an electronics industry that can make state-of-the-art gear. And that gear was, at that time, state-of-the-art. It was picked up by most other friendly nations as a standard set, and even today it is capable of very, very good performance on the HF bands. Again, we have to get that one going. Possibly not on 80 metres only, but certainly on 40, if not on 20. That really does cover, I think, the Max Loveless collection, except if I could say to you again, or before I do say that again, we managed to resuscitate that too, the old Wireless Institute sign that was in it in the old Fletcher Jones building. We'll certainly have that lit up tomorrow. Would someone remember to buy a big lamp, because that one's a bit small. Could I just conclude by saying that the Max Loveless collection is quite genuine in endeavouring to preserve the craft of our technology. We are attempting to memorialise those people who worked in the wonderful world of wireless, whether by occupation or simply pastime. There are many, many silent keys now. Much of their equipment has been frittered to the four winds, or worse still, has gone to that big dump. Only very recently, I know there was a number 19 set dumped on the northwest coast, and I couldn't get there quickly enough. But if you can do nothing else, if you can bear in mind that there are people around who are interested in having first call on your junk, let us make up our minds what junk is, but the sort of things we want: old call books, old qualification certificates, old QSL cards, your old copies of the books and things that you studied from. Any valves at all, because we want to keep this gear working. And certainly we need your assistance, either by wielding screwdrivers, hot soldering on and 60-40 solder, or whatever, to get some of the gear working. I hope that in 1988 we'll have that transmitter over there on air at the bicentennial TARC. Thanks very much for listening to me, and I hope you got some interest.
Attention. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, for several minutes, we shall be conducting the official portion of our Tasmanian Amateur Radio Convention for 1985. And I would crave your indulgence so that our speakers may be heard clearly and in silence. As I said before, there will be a toast to be drunk at a little later, so if you'll please keep your glasses charged. I know some of you have to yet get them charged. There are jugs coming forward from the bar. You'll be able to do that quietly, but we must get things underway. and that we shall do. And in my task tonight as your Master of Ceremonies will be to call firstly upon the President of the Southern Branch of the Wireless Institute of Tasmania, VK7RS, Russell Pittman.
Thank you. Your Master of Ceremonies this evening is an old classmate of mine, VK7LJ, Lou Jarvis. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, one and all. Thanks are in order. I'd like to thank, at this particular time, the amateurs that have put their backs in and the time in to make this TARC, which incidentally is my first, one of the most memorable that I understand that's been held for some time. And also I would like to thank all of you who are here this evening, because without you, the TARC couldn't be successful, and seeing all your smiling faces makes it all worthwhile. I don't want to say any more, except that I will call on our Divisional President, Peter King, VK7ZPK, who will introduce our guest of honour. And as I said in the QRM, I can't do any more than say welcome from your Southern Branch hosts.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome here this evening the Mayor of Glenorchy, Alderman David Shields. We have asked the Mayor here tonight to formally open our convention. We are grateful that he has consented to give up his valuable time for us tonight. We have noted that David Shields is also patron of the Montrose Yacht Club, and so it seems very appropriate to have him here tonight in this quite superb community facility provided by the Yacht Club. Without further ado, I introduce to you Alderman David Shields.
Mr. President, thank you very much for your introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, and looking amongst the crowd, clients of the auction mart. I'm very pleased to be here in a dual capacity this evening, I guess, as a Mayor of the city and patron of this club, and to welcome you that have travelled to Glenorchy to this facility. It's also very nice to have a look at the works of art, for the want of a better word, that some of my clients put from the rubbish that I sell them, because I wouldn't have a clue what it is until I see it assembled here. But this amateur radio convention is a very significant occasion. It is a celebration of 75 years of coordinated activity by the ordinary people who, through their attention to technological development, their application of innovation, skill and often hard work, have managed through the hobby activity to provide an amateur radio service which has served the community well in times of community disaster. During both world wars and even today, when international communications are commonplace, amateurs worldwide are seeing excellence through such mediums as satellites and computers. And talking to Peter a moment ago, I was amazed to know that amateurs are in fact up to their 11th satellite. And what did you call it? They've got tail-end facilities, or somehow or other they managed to get a little satellite on with the big ones when they go up. But I think that speaks marvels for the amateur organisation throughout the world, that you're able to advance with this sort of technology into even space-age communication. The city of Glenorchy seems to be a very appropriate place for you to hold this convention this year. And your theme, yesterday, today and tomorrow, is very, very appropriate. As you know, we've got the theme Glenorchy City Going Places, and as well as it being your 75th birthday, it's our 21st this year, and we're in the process of celebrating our 21st. This morning you reenacted a very historic wireless event at Sandy Bay, and Mr. Hallam, one of the original team involved in the 1901 experiment, was a member of the Hallam family, who are pioneers in our city of Glenorchy. The family still resides and is very well known, and there are of course a lot of offspring that I don't know whether they're interested in radio, but they're certainly interested in a lot of other community projects. Also you have Max Loveless, famous for his part with the Winnie the War winner, and whose name your collection of wireless relics has been named after. He was a resident of our city, lived in Derwent Park, and I believe his widow and his family still live there. There have been so many very innovative things in radio. I was thinking about this in the last few days, and I must say that the notes that I'm reading now, with the help of Barry Risely, and I do appreciate Barry helping me out on these, but I did give some thought to it. And we take so much for granted in this day and age, the communications that we have. I can remember as a boy, I'm old enough and still young enough to be able to remember the amazing strides that have been taken in the world in communication. And my first communication media, of course, was the wireless, as they called it in those days. And I can remember very vividly for Christmas being given a crystal set. And it intrigued me, and I could never work out exactly how I managed to pick up the Goon Show and some of these other favourites of those early days on the headphones with a crystal set. And I'm afraid that was the extent of my technological wisdom. I often regret that, and certainly if I was to ever wish to pick up those lost years with the innovations that have been done, I would be one that would be lost. But I think that the idea of a collection that you're setting up now is marvellous, and you're to be commended for it, because there will be such a big gap. I foresee that the children of tomorrow will be taught Marconi's principles and the great experiment, and then there'll be such a jump from there to what we know today. And in fact, what we know today and what we've got displayed today could well be lost to the children of tomorrow, because the advances in communication have been so dramatic and so quick that we've got to the stage, if you reflect now, of throwaway radios. And I don't think anyone in this room would have ever thought that we would come to the time when we would have throwaway radios. And I sell radios at times that are cheaper than the batteries that go into them. Mentioning time, I also sell wristed watches, digital wristed watches, that are cheaper than the wristbands. And certainly, I would think, I'd be correct in saying cheaper than the batteries, because I sold some today for $4. And where can you buy a watch band and a battery for $4? So I think that this intermediate, for the want of the proper word, of the history of communication and radio is so very, very important to be housed, because the people in the future and the children of tomorrow will very much appreciate having something that they can relate to see the actual growth of communication and radio. And certainly the amateurs of Tasmania, and I would say Australia and worldwide, need to take into their consideration the fact of what they have taken enjoyment out of and what they have in the past taken pleasure out of. They can still very much put to the future to show exactly what radio and communication was all about. I do commend everyone that has made this display here today. I've taken serious note of what has been said. It's been mentioned to me many times that you would like a building for the Max Lovegrove Memorial Exhibition. I would hope that you will still maintain that collection and add to that collection, and I would certainly be very hopeful that we will find an appropriate place where you can set up a permanent museum. It's so very important, I think, that the type of thing that you're doing is recorded for posterity. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please charge your glasses? You've been warned that you should have had them charged. 75th Convention of the Wireless Amateur Movement, to ask you all to join with me in the toast to the Institute with the theme, Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow. The Institute. Thank you very much.
We shall press along with some of the other things to be done. The principal one at this point in time will be a presentation of awards relating to the construction or the home brewing or whatever you may wish to term it. And to handle that portion of the evening, I will call on the chairman of the judging panel, Alan Ribbon. VK7RS.
Ladies and gentlemen, a couple of things. Firstly, I must confess that I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by the quantity of homebrew equipment we received. Well done. Thank you very much for those people that have brought equipment along. The job for the judges has not been easy. Again, I must thank the judges for giving their time to this competition. I must also thank some of the supply companies that have supported us by way of providing prizes. So I hope you note those companies, and I hope you support them because they support you. The Homebrew Awards have been divided into three sections. Firstly, we have a section for computing software, and I'd ask Mr. Stephen Gathercole, representing George Harvey, to come forward and present this award.
Award for the best radio amateur computer software for 1985 is awarded to Mike Jenner, VK7FB.
I believe Michael got a little delayed in getting away. He couldn't stop talking. He can't deny that, can he? He's not here. Perhaps, Steve, you might like to present this to Mike Haney, who's going to stand in for Mike. Thank you. The second award that we have is for craftsmanship, and I'd call on Mr. Barry Risely to come forward for this and make this presentation for you. This has been an agonising decision for the judges, I can assure you, and I would like to commend the people for the craftsmanship they have shown in constructing the items that have been presented. Barry?
Thank you, Alan. And I'd remind, while I'm opening up the envelope, I'd remind people here that the standard of craftsmanship against which you should judge any work is the transmitter on the side over there that was built by Max Loveless in 1956. Well, I've got the open order, and I've got the card. The Max Loveless Award for Craftsmanship in Construction 1985 is awarded to Byron Dilworth, VK7B.
Someone who could accept this award from the Northern Branch from Byron. Byron's through, right.
Congratulations, Byron.
The final award that we wish to present this evening is the combined award presented by ICOM Australia and my own company, Electronic Installations, and that is for the Best Homebrew Exhibit 1985. I'll just read the envelope for you. The ICOM Australia Award for the Best Homebrew Exhibit 1985 is awarded to VK7B JJ Brown. You say a few words, Joe.
Ladies and gentlemen, embarrassed as I am, I haven't got very much to say, except, well, thank you.
Well, once again, thank you very much for embarrassing me with the amount of homebrew equipment that's come along. It goes to show that we started doing it 75 years ago and we're still doing it now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Congratulations to contestants, and also sincere thanks to all the people who entered and made the competition a well-worthy one. Nothing now remains but to a few housekeeping, or shall we say bread and butter announcements before winding down the tape. As you know, at 7:30 from onwards our social function will be at the Masonic Club, and all of you, with a couple of exceptions, have your tickets in your hot little hands or purses. Please do not lose them. You'll be required to pass over a portion of it in token of your fact that you've paid something for the kitchen to come back to me and try and get the money back out of me. So that will be required. I understand there may be some people who wish to attend without tickets. I would like them, if possible, to come and see me. The club, I must warn you, is very full tonight. This function tonight we are attending is in response, shall I say, a small response from about 20 people who wish to have a social function. And strangely enough, it has grown and grown, and now it looks like it will be at least 110 and perhaps 120. The club is welcome and is very pleased to have you, and I'm sure they'll tell us that too. There will be some others in attendance, and I know that you'll enjoy yourselves. You probably will find difficulty in parking tonight, so don't cut it to the last moment to get in there. As far as I know, you won't have to sign the book to get in, but Harry Gilbert will check that one up and ascertain that. Would you, Harry? About if it's necessary to sign the book. I doubt if it will be. There are only one table which has a reservation on it, and I won't give any first prize to guessing whose that is. So the rest of the tables will be, shall we say, free for all. Make up the parties as you see fit and occupy yourselves to your heart's content. The bar will be open and available for your use. The dance floor, I guess the musicians will come along when they're ready, as seems to be the way that musicians do these days. And I know them and they'll do a pretty good job. You will enjoy yourself, I'm sure. If there's any problems, please come and see me and we can see what we can sort out. If there are any questions, grab me before I leave the hall in the next 10 minutes. And I think that's about all I have to say. And somebody else has now something to say, so Barry, would you please come up on the platform?
Thanks very much, Lou. I won't hold you up very long, ladies and gentlemen. I was part of the TARC organising committee, but a very small part. Really all I had to do was write some letters and keep a meeting room available to people. But I do think that as Divisional Secretary here tonight, it'd be remiss of us if we didn't pay some tribute to the fellow amateurs amongst us who've worked so hard to make this TARC a success. As tonight's social function won't be a formal one, it won't be possible to do it there. But the trouble with this sort of thing is once you start mentioning names, you're sure to forget someone. But I believe that your committee, headed up by Ken VK7RS and all the other people, the Alara people, the people that have made the satellite gear available, packet gear, the teletypes, even my president and branch council for extending the facilities of the Max Loveless collection to us, and the various assistances that we've received, including the remarkable facilities here at the Montrose Yacht Club, deserve to be commended. And on your behalf, I'd ask you to put your hands together in appreciation of them and show them that the next 75 years is going to be at least as good, if not better, than the first. There is just one further thing. As it isn't a formal function tonight, mainly caused through the reticence of you people getting bits of paper back. There is a further presentation that we'd like to make. And I suppose it could be considered to be a somewhat novel presentation, but with one piece of amateur activity in the state that does bind the state together. Tonight we've got the TARC, and one of the great things about the TARC is that it's the division. It is the Wireless Institute Tasmanian division working together to put something on. It isn't the three branches working against one another. And if we can do nothing else but that here tonight, if we can serve to push that theme forward, then the next 75 years will be okay. But the Devil Award is our principal national activity. Some would say perhaps even international activity. Now this year we've got a new Devils Award manager, Bob, VK7RS, and you all know what happens if you're a newcomer on the band, particularly for Tuesday night, and if you dare QSL with any DBs over 9. And I'd like Bob to come forward and accept this little Tasmanian devil here, which is in the stance of Bob at the control of the 80-metre net just after a 20 over 9's been given. Notice the white teeth. Are you there, Bob? Is Bob not there? Gone, right. Well, he'll be at the dinner tonight, I believe, so if someone can make sure he gets that. And we hope that'll become a perpetual Devils Award manager insignia. But once you give the Devils Award manager a prize, it would be most inopportune not to give something to the person with the greatest number of VK7 contacts. Now at the present time, that's Greg Johnson, VK7KJ. And it's Greg here. He's not here either. Well, there's another Tasmanian devil, this time with his mouth shut, and he's not painted. So what he needs to do is to let someone else catch up on him. He could paint that devil into the right colours and maybe let someone else get it next year. But we hope that'll become a regular presentation. Now the other thing that you might be interested in is that we intend to have, and we would have had available today except that time's just run out, we intend to have some of the famous snakebite cure that's available. Now you've all heard of the snakebite cure that's used in the Falmouth Hotel. Then there will be some bottles of Aspade, not lemonade, Aspade available with a special 75th anniversary label on it. We're not going to sell it because that's against the law, but anyone that takes a bottle and doesn't donate some money will be in real trouble. And that'll be red or white variety, and it's guaranteed to be made from well-fermented devil's droppings found only at Falmouth on the east coast. So you can see me later for orders for those. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Barry. It's marvellous how the time slips away, but we're going to use it well. Russ, I'll leave these and trust these into your tender care to bring them tonight. But I would like to swear everybody present to a little pact of secrecy. Please don't blow what Bob and Greg are going to get. Can we trust you on that one? Let it be a nice little surprise for them in there. In there, how do we get there? Maybe some of you are still confused. If you go down the Brooker Highway to the railway roundabout, turn right and go up Liverpool Street until you come to Barrack Street. Turn left and the club is on the corner of Macquarie. Alternatively, if you go past the roundabout and up Davy Street, proceed up past the Anglesey Barracks and turn right down Mole Street and then right back into Macquarie. Those of you who don't know Hobart don't know what I'm talking about anyway, and you'll get there. So see you all there and have a good time. Thank you very much. There is food, I think there is drink to partake of, and you are very welcome to use it until it runs out. Thank you very much.